Hi there, Victor Oliver, the Beach Bum Astrologer, except I'm not on the beach today. It's far too windy, and even here it could get a bit windy too. I'm actually in a graveyard. It seems the natural place to come to. Quick stroll, there we are, look, my friends. Just because they're dead doesn't mean they're not my friends. Quick one on the Capricorn lunar eclipse today. The lunar eclipse, as you now know, is a sun-moon opposition, otherwise known as a full moon, except it's a bit more than a full moon. I did put an audio out on this, but one or two things got lost in translation, so I thought I'd come to my favourite graveyard to put you straight. This is not a major lunar eclipse. We're in the eclipse season at the moment, and there have been two other eclipses recently which were far more significant, and you can see those videos on YouTube if you want to catch up. This particular lunar eclipse in Capricorn doesn't have any strong aspects really, except one which I'll come to in a moment. Remember that a lunar eclipse, like the full moon to some extent, represents a culmination or the ending of something, a crisis, a climax, or something like that. Well, we live in a world of crisis at the moment, so that doesn't prove anything. What I would say about this particular eclipse is that it's a reminder of what must be done. It's a background type message, and if we get it wrong, things could be pretty bad. But I'm going to introduce a new idea here about eclipses, which you may not be familiar with, and that has to do with the fact that every eclipse is part of an eclipse family, and we call these the Saros cycles. Saros spelt S-A-R-O-S, if you want to look into it. And Saros basically means repeat or repeats. Essentially what it means is that each eclipse has a certain geometric pattern which is unique to itself and gets repeated every 18 or 19 years. You know, there is a specific periodicity to this particular eclipse. And this is a very new type of eclipse actually. It started in 1984, and when you're looking at a Saros cycle eclipse, you're looking at the very first chart, or the very first eclipse chart, in order to see what the basic message is, to see how it feeds down the line. And by the way, these Saros cycles can last 12 to 1300 years, so they're an excellent way of actually detecting patterns in history and so forth. And there are many Saros cycles in operation at any given moment. That's a whole new different story, and I'm not going to go into all that. So what did the 1984 Saros eclipse tell us? Essentially it was about learning. It appeared in Sagittarius Gemini, so it's about learning, it's about inquiry, it's about scholarship, it's about it's basing your actions on what we know and also expanding knowledge. Those are the basic themes. There's much more to this, but that's the basic theme. So how does that apply to the lunar eclipse today? Well, we find the sun in Cancer, of course, moon in Capricorn, Capricorn being the sign of restriction and isolation. The moon is never happy in Capricorn, doesn't like it. And essentially the people, the moon represents the people, also our emotions, we're still feeling that sense of restriction, that sense of isolation, or we know that we can't do everything we want to do, or even if we can do certain things, we have to be careful, we have to watch our step, and the opposition reflects that. It's also quite interesting that the sun in Cancer is also on the largest asteroid of them all, Vesta. And Vesta is to do, curiously enough, with domesticity, which is almost like a lunar theme in its own way, but it's also to do with sterility and maintaining one's purity. Almost Virgo themes there. But in fact, you can apply that line of logic to how we're supposed to behave now, that we have to keep ourselves as pure, so to speak, as possible, so that we don't get infected or infect others. There are some minor aspects to the sun and moon. For example, there's a very weak square to Mars, which is a reminder that there are problems of disquiet within the public realm, and also the government itself is in a state of some discord, I would suggest. That's going to become more apparent over the next few months. However, there is a sextile to Uranus, which is in a sense an encouragement to break out of restriction, but I think we can apply some common sense to that aspect, that as much as we're being encouraged to break out, so to speak, we have to maintain a sense of responsibility, and responsibility kind of is infused through this lunar eclipse. It's not a dramatic lunar eclipse. You're not going to see earthquakes and stuff like that, although there are always earthquakes, always. Astrology and earthquakes, don't get me there. But so it's a lunar eclipse, minor in its feel. I'm not losing any sleep over it. But remember that under each eclipse is that warning that if we don't follow the basic message, which in this instance is basing our understanding on what we know and what we can know, then the consequences can be pretty dire. I hope you've enjoyed this little film, and if you want to know more about my astrology, you can go and visit my website, victoroliver.co.uk. That's Oliver, O-L-L-I-V-E-R. And you can find out more about my approach to astrology and also about my range of services, and contact me first if you want a consultation. Thank you for listening, and I hope you're having a wonderful lunar eclipse day in Capricorn. And I'm going to go up to the Downs now. I'm going to walk through my graveyard party here, have a little contact with people, you know, to do, and then perhaps have a very late lunch. I'm on a diet at the moment, but that's another story. Thank you.